let's talk about Dead Space Remake. I've just noticed in the show notes I put first 18 minutes of gameplay instead of first 18 minutes. The first 18 minutes. Anyway, we knew it was looking phenomenal already from previous trailers and screenshots that came out. But it was an IGN first. They streamed the first 18 minutes from the very beginning. And, well, I mean, as remakes go, it looks freaking spectacular, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
They really have, like, from the ground up, replaced everything, replaced all the assets, done what I think is fresh VO for it. I think that they've actually changed some of the writing as well with the lines of delivery.
Mm-hmm.
New motion capture by the looks of it as well. New reactions, obviously, for Isaac. And they have totally rebuilt this from scratch for modern hardware and presentation and expectations and the horror genre for where we are in 2022. And by God, it looks amazing. And honestly, I was day one from its first announcements because I love Dead Space, and this has just reinforced how good this is going to be. And it's almost impossible not to compare Callisto Protocol to Dead Space. And once I finish Callisto Protocol, I'm still quite early into the game, about 5 or 6 hours. I'll do a deep dive on that and the relationship, obviously, between those two games. But I still firmly believe that if you were waiting for a Dead Space remake and maybe Callisto Protocol isn't doing it for you, you can enjoy both of them together. Or Callisto Protocol is not necessarily your Dead Space fix. You can appreciate the two of them together, kind of thing, for doing their own things, because they are different enough. And I'm just hugely excited for a Dead Space remake as well. And to go back into that world, and the USG Ishimura is still, I still relate it to Event Horizon as a video game kind of thing. As that, I always think I always associated with that. For right or wrong, I don't know why, but I always thought Event Horizon is like the Dead Space video game, even though it's not really. But Sarah, what did you think of this 18 minutes of gore and splatterfest and atmosphere and sound?
Oh, it's glorious, isn't it? It was amazing to watch. The 18 minutes of gameplay, obviously just the beginning section of the game, and was probably about the same amount of time that it took for me to then hand the controller over to Connor, because I was like crapping myself when I was first playing it. But yeah, the thing that always blows my mind is when gameplay and what's it called when there's a scene happening?
Cinematics?
Yeah, cinematics. Don't know. When a cinematic is happening and it goes seamlessly back into gameplay and you're suddenly taking over, I'm like, no, that always blows my mind when you can't even feel the transition between something. It's insane.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that it's achieving, and it is. It was. I don't know if this was an intentional thing for the trailer. Was the brightness up a little bit? Because it felt like in the moment where, when you get separated, you're in the quarantine section bit, and the guy gets like hoisted up with the big alien bits right through the back of him. Yeah. I don't think you could see that much of that detail last time. Or maybe when we played it, we just had the darkness really intense. But it felt like you were able to see, well, just the detail. The detail was there. There was so much of it that you could see that I felt like maybe they'd lifted the brightness or something. That's a clever, intentional thing to do, to see how detailed these monsters are. They're so terrifying, and when they're scuttling across the top as well, I was like, don't go that way. But also, that's the only way. You have to go that way. Sorry. Oh my God, it's going to be great. It's going to be terrifying. But also, I'm older and wiser now. I think I can handle it.
No, you can't. You really can't.
I don't know.
It's an interesting point about the brightness, though, because it's the same thing as they can cram so much detail and draw distance into games now, whereas back then, and I became super aware of it on games like the original Halo Combat Evolved, where there was these long corridors which were just in blackness, and then the remake came out on the anniversary one came out for the Xbox 360, and everything was just way too bright. As they had almost lost the art direction because it was so bright, and then it lost the atmosphere. And back then it was because of limitations. It's like we can't render anything too far away, so we have to make it shrouded in shadow and like super dark and hard to see. Whereas now it's that balancing act of what if we illuminate everything to show how much detail we're putting into these environments and how much shadows and lighting effects we can cram in. Yes, but I can see all the way to the end of that corridor now. Whereas before I had no idea what was at the end of that corridor, and that was way more terrifying than seeing a shambling necromorph coming towards you.
Yeah.
So I think there's that definite balancing act of, yeah, we can do it. We can illuminate everything and give you atmosphere, but then you lose a bit of atmosphere because if you see what's there, then there's that fear element disappears a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas as the fear of the unknown is always more powerful, more palpable. And I hope it looked like there was some sections which were total darkness and it was just the strobing effect. And it was that effect that you get from cinema where if a creature is walking towards you and you only see it like every second or third second, and it's just like stop motion kind of thing where it's moving towards you. It's those moments you're like, holy fuck, this thing's coming for me, and I can't quite make out what it is. It looks terrifying. And Dead Space was always the original Dead Space was always really good at that. And I will say, to relate it a little bit to Callisto Protocol as well. I don't want to go too much into it, but the thing I'm lacking a little bit in Callisto Protocol, what Dead Space always did amazingly well and still does, is the necromorphs are genuinely terrifying and still genuinely terrifying with their whole visual look of these weird like bone shards that are kind of and limbs that are all contorted and distorted, and their movement genuinely horrifying and different. Whereas Callisto, where I'm in at the moment, still feels a little bit too humanoid, like too zombie like they're still people, but they're mutated people, but they're not really these horrific grotesque monstrosities that are super alien and super foreign and super terrifying. And that kind of damages a little bit of the scariness. But anyway, to focus on Dead Space, it looks like they're just absolutely nailing the nostalgia factor, but also like moving it into a new modern kind of experience. And I remember reading somewhere at the time that the original game had these kind of like loading screens and cut off sections of the space station, whereas now they've removed all of that and it's all seamless and it's much more kind of like open world space station, so you can literally explore everywhere seamlessly, which I think is going to be super awesome and a whole new way to experience Dead Space 1.
Definitely.
Yeah. Jamie?
It's I don't have a hell of a lot of experience with the original Dead Space. I've played it, but it was a while ago and it wasn't a lot. It was it is a fantastic example of the sci-fi horror genre. And the remake looks amazing. Like seamless loading is going to help horror games hugely anyway, because you think back to like the early Resident Evil days. You know, when you open a door, everything went black, and there was a door opening, and then if it takes you out of the moment, you lose that fear factor. The section in the trailer where you saw, you know, people getting torn apart through a plexiglass window, and you can do nothing about it, but that was well lit. That works. Having that brightened up and well lit, because you can see everything that could possibly happen to you, but they can't get to you, you can't get to them, and then you're in amongst it. The bit where the necromorph comes through the door and gets crunched in half, splattering him, and it's glorious. It's so good. But there was a thing, the brightness thing, like you said about the balance. There was a guy, and I can't remember who said it, but there was a guy in the horror film genre somewhere who said, if it's really scary, it should be scary in the daylight. It was tantamount to what he said. He said, which basically, he said, it's not hard to scare someone in the dark, but it's really hard to scare someone when it's brightly lit.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
There is a definite balance there. I think the old horror equivalent of the Fog of War, which was obviously system limitations back in the day, helped a lot, but also maybe made them have to put less work in at times. it'll be interesting to see. Like, I hope it's still dark, because this sort of game should be. You shouldn't be wandering a space station surrounded by evil aliens, or a spaceship surrounded by evil aliens, or anything like that, and be able to see every nook and cranny and corner, because that's going to take away from it. But it'll be interesting to see if the increased fidelity and the how clear everything is either makes them more grotesque and horrifying, and you can see them coming at you and you really freak out, or if it's more a case of like, no, it's coming, I'm not. So that's a balancing act. But looking at the trailer, it looks like they've nailed it, because it still looks creepy. It still looks, you can't quite tell what's going on in the shadows, and then the thing's in your face, and you can really see what it looks like. But yeah. So I'm in. I'm definitely going to be playing this one, because I love a horror game. So
yeah. I think I'm definitely going to be going PS5 for this one, just for what they can experiment with the haptics and things like that, because it could be so extra immersive an experience. And like I'm sure the audio design for this, and if it's proper 3D audio, like I'm assuming that they probably will have in it, it's just going to be a whole other level of just messing with you. Like sounds, if there's a creature way up in the rafters, in the pipework and shambling around, but behind the walls of the space station, like it's there, you can hear it's there, and it's just little metallic sounds, little groaning sounds, and it's like, and because it's positional audio as well, it's like, oh fuck, it's right there. It's like there's hardly anything between me and it. It's like terrifying. I just love that stuff as well, even though I get so like skin crawly, like shivery. It's like, no, I gotta just turn it off, or crank the brightness so way up, it's like the entire screen is white. It's like, that's how we play, and I make no regrets about that. But it just looks amazing, and I'm super excited for it as well. Like as a Dead Space fan, and it's great to see the Dead Space series coming back, because fans have wanted a new Dead Space for years. And when the news broke that EA had shut down the original studio, Visceral, who'd created the original studios, there was such an outcry of like, oh my god, what are you doing? This is a premier horror studio that makes single player game. But that was around the time when EA was like, single player games don't sell, we're only going to focus on multiplayer games. Obviously they've done a big U-turn of that recently, and we're getting the next entry in Jedi Fallen Order, which looks really quite cool. At time of recording, the Video Game Awards are tonight. They're going to be showing off the new one, so we'll be talking all about that next week's show. And of course, more single player games are coming out of this studio, of this publisher as well. Hugely exciting just to see horror at its most popular for the industry, and it's great. It's great. We just need that Guillermo del Toro, Hideo Kojima partnership horror game, which which we got a glimpse of with PT way back, but never came to fruition. So I'd love to see that partnership kind of come back and see what they could do.
Take my damn money. Yes, please.
But what a time, right? Because we've got the Silent Hill remake coming. We've got more Resident Evil coming, obviously. We've got this coming out. It's like, horror fans are eating good. They're eating extra portions of brains in their video games, right?
Oh, yeah. If I could have one wish in the horror genre, I would like to see a real AAA, very, 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 a lot of love behind it, a lot of money behind it version of something like Phasmophobia.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like
I think
mega
there's
budget,
scope
mega
there.
production. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting, because I also think you could ruin it doing that. It needs the slightly glitchy, creepy indie element, I think, in some ways. But if you got the right team on it, I would love to see it, because I love that fucking game so much.
Yeah. And that could be really cool, because I remember the demo for Resident Evil 7. It was the one of the opening bits of the game, and the entire thing was VCR. It was a section of the main game, but this little demo was just through the video camera perspective of. It's like a Most Haunted, Jamie. It's like they heard about this cabin in the woods, and they're going to go film it, and it's supposed to be haunted and supernatural and spooky, and it turns out to be like the family, and Jack butchers them all. But the whole perspective was just a VCR, and like that kind of thing for a supernatural game would be really cool. If it's the whole aesthetic is just like a like scan lines of an old VCR, TV, video
Yep.
camera kind of thing. I think
Mhm.
I'm trying to think back. I'm pretty sure there was a horror game which was like that, and I can't remember the name of it. But it had the little record thing in the corner, and it's like the white kind of framing box, and I think I don't know if the entire perspective was like that, but I do remember something like that. And that's a way to obviously get the AAA tech behind it, but still have the look of old glitchy, scratchy tape. It jumps. You get the kind of the wobbly, wavy lines as the scan lines kind of go across the screen, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
So potential is there for like a Phasmophobia VR AAA experience.
That would be cool.
Haptics of like maybe like air blowing across your neck or something from the headset. It's got like a port or something, right? Ah, no, the ghost.
Yeah, I love it. Faz has my heart. I adore that game. I've played it to death, and I'll continue to play it. And it's but there's stuff they could do. I want a full haptic suit. I want to be sat here. I want to feel the ghost run up and just tap my shoulder, because there's nothing creepy. One of the weirdest things in that game ever, and again, segue, but one of the weirdest things in that game ever is walking into a kid's bedroom and turning to walk out of it and just hearing hee 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 hee. Right? There was nothing more horrible than that.
Yeah.
I've heard that ghost tell me to die. I've had it kill me. I've watched it crawl across the floor. That's all fucked up, but fine. But a giggle in a child's bedroom, and then you turn around and the rabbit's gone? Nah, burn the house to the ground and go. There's no point. You can't save that family. It's not worth it.